All right, set number 4, last one. Goal is 10. Realistically, 8 to 9.
NANI?! Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
Okay, day 20, 3 weeks into the experiment, guys. So right off the bat, strength is going pretty well, as you guys just saw. Although I did, fall on that final 10th rep of 255 on the bench, I still got my main target, which was 4 sets of 8 reps, which is a 10-pound increase from the video that you guys saw 10 days prior. Similar case with the seated shoulder press, where I have successfully completed 165 for 4 sets of 8 reps. This is actually the highest weight I've ever done for this much volume, these sets and reps. It's tied with my all-time best a few years ago, which is great, because if I'm tied with the best that I've ever been in my entire life, that means going forward, here and after, it's all just new and uncharted territory, and I'm excited for the weeks to come. Jumping ahead to deadlifts, this is an exercise I haven't talked about yet, but yes, I have been consistently introducing them into my program over these last few weeks. This is 335, and again, I'm doing around 4 sets of 6 to 8 reps. It feels definitely a little weird, probably looks a little awkward and weird. Bear with me again, guys. Even at this weight, which is like over 100 pounds less than what I used to do consistently for sets and reps, it feels good to be doing this for the first time consistently in a while. I do also want to mention, guys, that give me a little credit. These are so much harder than regular standard deadlifts, because I need to lower the weight slowly. Again, I live in a condo, and until Ontario gets its head out of its ass and opens gyms back up, God knows when, until then, yeah, this is the best that I can do. Like, honestly, this shit sucks. It feels like every rep I do, it kind of feels like a paused rep where I have to like slowly lower the weight. It makes it noticeably harder. So it seems like either these negatives are just that hard and really kicking my ass, or I'm being a little bitch and I just need to get my posterior chain stronger back up to where it used to be. Now, next up in terms of weight, things are kind of good, but also kind of bad because it's too much. My weight's actually, it's been going up. It's at 196-ish around there, which cumulatively is about 4 pounds above where I started around 3 weeks, 20-ish days ago, which it's a little fast, I gotta be honest. When you're losing weight, you want to be losing weight at around 1 to 2 pounds per week, at least for a man my size, around 0.5% to 1% of your body weight on a weekly basis. And people like to say, oh, so for gaining weight, you want to do the same thing, just flip it. Instead of losing, you're gaining. No. Your body cannot pack on muscle that fast, especially someone in my case who's been doing this for this long. Testosterone or not, it's just not going to happen. There is no way that even half of that is lean body mass. Even if I was on fucking steroids, I don't think I can do that. I'm not going to dial down my food intake just yet. I want a little bit more data, give it another week or so. But if I don't see this at least, not like zeroing out, but at least slowing down, yeah, I might have to scale the food intake a little bit, because I'm trying to be a lot more conservative, and this is something I will definitely keep an eye on in the coming 1 to 2 weeks. But yeah, other than that, things are going smooth. I do want to mention that I am officially taking 200 milligrams of testosterone now. That's 4 pills per day, 2 in the morning, 2 in the evening. Side effects are completely zero. Whatever gastric, stomach issues I had in the past, that does seem to have alleviated. So again, it makes me think that it was just the increased food intake, not the actual testosterone that was causing those temporary problems. And Physique, as you guys are seeing on screen right now, yeah, I feel pumped, I feel big, I feel good, but again, this is nothing I haven't experienced in the past on totally normal, regular, cold turkey, natural bulks, where all I got is protein and creatine. So yeah, guys, this is me so far. Nothing overly noticeable in terms of tangible or visual improvements just yet, but also, at least on the flip side, thank God, nothing negative either. Okay, let's talk about something, and this is actually very related to what I just did, what you guys just saw. We live in a good age when it comes to information in regards to training. This isn't 15 years ago when I started and all you had was forums and crappy bodybuilding magazines where everybody's on juice. Now we have YouTube, we have social media, we have 1,000 guys just like me doing this full time for a living, throwing good advice at you guys from a training standpoint. So to be honest, it's in our day and age, it's kind of hard to really mess up your training. You'd have to try hard to actually build a poor training strategy. So if that's the case, why the hell are so many people still not getting the results that they want? Why is it that probably a good percentage of you, maybe not the majority, but still a solid percentage of you guys watching my channel are not seeing the kind of gains that you'd like, or that you see other people here on social media or in the gym or whatever doing? And a big reason behind this is because although on paper, in terms of the exercises, the volume, the sets, the reps, the this, the that, everything looks good, in actual practice, if I were to go and see your training firsthand, I would probably say in a lot of cases that you are stopping like 30% shy of where you should be, 30% shy of where I would. Let me explain. Okay, let's say we have two individuals. One is making good gains and one unfortunately isn't. In fact, we're gonna call this you, and I'm not saying all of you, I'm just saying the you that this pertains to, and this is me. Over here on the y-axis, we have intensity in general, just how hard and essentially how close to failure you are going on each of your sets. And over here are your sets, or the number of sets. Now, a lot of you guys are doing something like this, whereas I am usually training like this. You may be doing more overall sets or mainly exercises than me. For example, in this case, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 overall sets, exercises, whatever. I've talked about this example in the past about how I worked out with a friend in college and he was kind of new to training, so I would give him a training plan and it would be like, 5 exercises or something that day, similar to what I was, maybe doing. And we'd go in the gym, and by the time I was like maybe on my second exercise, he'd come to me and he's like, I'm done. And I'm like, you're done your first exercise? Like, what the hell's going on? He's like, no, I finished. This is why he wasn't making any gains. And for the record, he actually quit after 6 months. And this is a problem because a lot of people start out, they don't see the results they want in, 3, 4, 6 months, and then they give up. Well, the problem is no shit you didn't see the results you want because you never even did it right to begin with. This is like getting on a bicycle, using one leg, taking the other leg, shoving it up your ass, going nowhere, falling over and being like, this sucks, it's just not for me. Oh, it's the genetics. Although you are doing overall more work on paper, your actual sets, many of which, this, I don't want to say they're useless and they do nothing, but they certainly, like 4 of these lower intensity sets may be less effective than one really good, really hard set. This actually comes to kind of like a concept or a theory or whatever you want to call it. This is the concept of effective reps. And what that essentially means is that although you do multiple sets, realistically, 2 of them actually cross that threshold to being effective sets. This pretty much breaks down this concept that everything you do in the gym is going to result in progress, in stimulating muscle hypertrophy, and this kind of says, well, yes, to a certain extent, but what's really critically important is these final effective reps, which in my case is everything. Every set I do in the gym is going to be effective because the final few reps, because I'm going to that much of a threshold in difficulty, intensity, failure, whatever you want to call it, all of them are going to be effective. Guys, you have to remember what actually stimulates muscle growth, what actually stimulates hypertrophy when you pick heavy things up and put them down. And people will usually say, oh, just muscle damage. Okay, what does that mean? Any kind of muscle damage? Can I just come to your house and whack your bicep with a baseball bat while you're sleeping? Tomorrow you're gonna wake up with 22-inch arms? Not exactly, because if you actually break it down, and a good way to remember this, T MD. Mechanical tension, metabolic stress, and muscle damage. This is the theory popularized in an article by Brad Schoenfield, someone I've talked about on this channel numerous times. Now, the first and actually most important factor, probably the majority of stimulus, comes from mechanical tension. This is just a fancy scientific way of saying force production by your muscles against a resistance, against a load lifted by your body. Now, the other two are important as well, but to be honest, this system is still not really that well understood. And so, to a certain extent, you could say that these two are actually sort of byproducts or related to the first one. Metabolic stress is simply the accumulation of various metabolites in your actual muscle mid or after a certain exercise, and it's thought that this doesn't actually directly cause or induce muscle hypertrophy. It indirectly increases mechanical tension because you essentially start recruiting additional motor units. The more and more reps you do, this is kind of one of the reasons why there's a belief that things like blood flow restriction training can be applicable, because you actually cause an increase in metabolites in the target muscle. I'm not going to go into too much into this, otherwise this video could take an hour. And muscle damage is essentially just micro trauma or micro tears in your muscle forming during exercise and repairing over the next 24 to 48 hours, slightly bigger. However, again, you can simply see that this is just a byproduct of this. You get the tension, you get the force production, this causes the muscle damage, and this is elevated by the metabolites increasing in your body. So realistically, the most important thing is simply this: mechanical tension. This is why, a lot of people say time under tension as a big buzzword when it comes to bodybuilding. Now, remember what I said about this. This is force production against a load. So the problem is, if you do not have a sufficient load, it doesn't cause you to produce a sufficient force. Your body is never going to get that stimulus to actually grow. This is kind of like maybe a slightly more sciencey way of referring to what you guys probably know Greg Doucette always talks about. He always screams like, harder than last time. That was a terrible impression. Harder than last time, work harder, lift heavier, all of these things. And to a certain extent, it's kind of true. Now, obviously you don't want to overdo this to the point where you've broken your body or injured yourself. And maybe this isn't the best piece of advice for complete and total noobs, because again, there is an increased risk of injury. If you don't know how to properly do the exercise, maybe you shouldn't be pushing yourself to absolute failure. But this is a big reason why the more experienced you get, both in terms of muscle gain and in terms of experience with certain exercises, especially complicated compound exercises, yeah, you're going to have to push yourself, and to a certain extent, you are going to have to go, maybe not harder than last time, but harder in general as you progress. I know another good example of this is Mike Isertel, also another fantastic source of information in fitness. He did this video I saw about a year ago, and he kind of gave you like training recommendations for all the different levels, beginner, advanced, intermediate. And essentially what he said was that the more and more advanced you became, the longer and longer you trained, the closer and closer, or in some cases even above failure, you need to go. Whereas beginners can still beginners can make progress doing fucking anything in the gym. You just picking up a weight and taking it over to the bench where you're going to be doing the exercise, that alone, your body's already like, holy shit, he's doing something quick. Start pumping in the protein and blowing up. As an intermediate, this slows down and you have to push up the intensity. As an advanced lifter, this goes even higher. And there's plenty of other examples of people who have done it. Dorian Yates was a big proponent of this. I remember he even had a whole training style. I believe it was called heavy duty training, or I might be thinking of Mike Menser.
Because every set, bar the warm-up sets, you got to warm up and to be safe and everything. But the real sets, I call them, we're going to go to absolute failure and even beyond with force reps, with assistance reps, maybe extra negative reps. On some exercises with machines where it's practical, if you did curls and you failed, I could lift the weight to the top for you and you could lower it down for probably another 3 reps. So if you'd just gone to failure here, you wouldn't have exhausted the negative part of the rep. So my thing is exhaust everything. It's totally fucked.
I have so many clients who come to me and they're like, Igor, I worked out for like 7 exercises, 3 to 4 sets each. And I'm like, the fuck? You're doing more than me. How are you not growing? Guys, like up until you know, for a long time, for probably the last year or so, I probably only trained 4 to 5 exercises per workout. Recently, I did bump it up a little bit, but even that, like, to be honest, a lot of you guys messaged me recently and said, Igor, why are you training so much more volume? That's gonna negate your experiment. Well, relax, because I haven't been able to do it. I tried to increase my volume, and I was only able to do it half as much as I wanted to because my body is just fucking breaking down. Like these guys who come to me and they're like, all right, I did 7 exercises, now what? How did you actually do it? Did you look like fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger at the final set of all your exercises? Did you really? Or did you look like your grandma, you know, at her mall walking book club? There's a difference. I would much rather somebody does 3 exercises of 3 hard sets as opposed to doing 6 or 7 exercises and going through all these cables, these machines, all this shit, and every time you stop 4 reps shy of what you really could do had you actually pushed yourself, like Arnold, like Dorian Yates, like me to a certain extent. I don't want to compare myself to those guys, but just people who've actually made the results that you want. Do this and I guarantee you will see more improvements, more gains in the next 6 months than you did in like the last 2 years, because that was dicking around, and this is the real thing.